So if you like Bad Company, Paul Rodgers, Mick Ralphs, I think you'll really enjoy the video that we have for you here today. A few days ago, we did a video about Led Zeppelin, and we were reading an article about them, and it talked about how some of the guys in Zeppelin went to see a Bad Company concert while they were on tour. While Led Zeppelin was on tour and Bad Company was on tour, and they just kind of went and saw the guys in Zeppelin went to see Bad Company in concert. Thought it was pretty interesting, and then it occurred to me, I don't think we've ever made a Bad Company video on this channel. And I thought that's such an oversight because I've always been a fan of Bad Company. I love Paul Rodgers. They had so much great music. And so anyway, so I did a little search and I found this really interesting article. And what interested me about it is it was specifically, they focus on Mick Ralphs a little bit. And it's kind of an interview with him. And so I think you'll enjoy this video if you like. And so the title of the article is Bad Company Makes Good Music. And it's from the Daily News, July 21st, 1974. Now, to put this in perspective, the first Bad Company album that was just self-titled came out in May of 1974. So this is just a couple months later. Now, a lot of us didn't discover Bad Company until long after they had become famous, of course, in the early 70s. And here we were in the 1980s discovering, Led Zeppelin and all the bands from back then, Black Sabbath, and Bad Company was one of them. And I think for me, the time I was really introduced to them was the song Feel Like Making Love. And that is just such an epic, amazing tune. And it's one of those that has that kind of the quiet thing, and then it goes gung, 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 has that hard-hitting thing. It's so great. So I bought that album, which was Straight Shooter. That one came out in 75. And then you buy that album, and you also discover that it has the song Shooting Star on it, which is just an epic, just an awesome tune. So then, I have this album, and then you start exploring and you start learning these other things. And you get their first album, Bad Company, which was self-titled, and there's just so much great stuff on there. And of course, the Can't Get Enough, just what an epic tune. Can't get enough of your love. Anyway, that's on the Bad Company's first album. And then they have the song Ready for Love, which is on there. And of course, the song Bad Company. Just so much great stuff. So anyway, I found this article that is from July 21st, 1974. Again, this is right after the first album came out. And it's just this cool little interview. And I think you'll enjoy hearing this. So here goes. Bad Company makes good music. Oh, and then, of course, there's a picture of the band there, Bad Company, Boz Burrell, Paul Rodgers, Mick Ralphs, and Simon Kirke. And this picture that you're looking at here that's out of this newspaper is actually taken from the when you open up their first album. That's the picture of the band inside the album. Bad Company have the strangest problem I've ever heard of in rock and roll. They're a band on the run, fleeing from too much of that magic quality that other bands cry out for, instant stardom. The four members of Bad Company are well-known musicians who made their mark with other bands and now want the chance to start all over again from the beginning, free from the expectations and hype that always seem to herald the formation of a so-called supergroup. Quote, "We desperately want to avoid the connotation of the word superstar," guitarist Mick Ralphs said with a shudder when I used the forbidden word while visiting the cluttered living room of his London flat. The long-haired 25-year-old musician is the member of Bad Company most guilty of being a superstar, although he lives on a modest tree-lined street that looks like an English version of Levittown. And the hand-painted, custom-built Mustang parked in front of his house gives away his celebrity status. The members of Bad Company are vocalist Paul Rodgers, 25, drummer Simon Kirke, 26, from Free. And of course, both those guys were from Free. Bass player Boz Burrell, 27, from King Crimson. And Mick, who steered his way through 6 albums and 5 choppy years with Mott the Hoople. Superstar names really don't work. Subhead. Mick puttered around in the kitchen with a kettle, making his first cup of tea of the day after arising, like a typical musician in mid-afternoon. As he waited for the water to boil, he leaned on a large souvenir poster of Colonel Sanders holding a bucket of fried chicken and explained the fate of most supergroups. Quote, groups that are formed on the basis of superstar names really don't work. Blind Faith, for instance, a combination of Eric Clapton and Steve Winwood, among others, was put together around the stars, and the names got pushed forward and not what the band did musically. The recognition is great, and we're flattered that we're known by the public, but we really want to talk about the new band. People keep hawking back to Free and Mott the Hoople. We try to play up what we can offer now rather than what we've already done. And it's so true. So many times when they have these superstar bands, it really is. You're looking back. I mean, think about the band that was put together later by Paul Rodgers and Jimmy Page. You know, what everybody was focused on is, does this sound like Bad Company or does this sound like Led Zeppelin, rather than listening to it for the new stuff. And every time a band is put together, a superstar group like that, that is the issue that you're dealing with. But Bad Company really was, on their own, awesome and had so many great tunes. They ended up really being successful. It's going to be as hard as playing a 12-string guitar with one hand to ignore the previous accomplishments of Bad Company. Paul Rodgers and Simon Kirke, for example, went through the rock wars trying to hold Free together. Although Rodgers was one of the most sought-after vocalists in the business, he was determined to succeed with Free. The other members of the band came and went as if the group had a revolving door, and although Rodgers was personally acclaimed, Free music had a checkerboard inconsistency. Eventually, the responsibility of holding the group together became too much for Rodgers, and with a last sad groan, Free passed on to the acetate burial ground. 12 songs ready in 3 weeks. Bearded Boz Burrell, a smiling, happy fellow with charismatic stage presence, was an overnight wonder when King Crimson's Robert Fripp taught him how to play the bass guitar as an emergency replacement, and Burrell soon became one of the best bassists in England. Mick Ralphs, however, had it bigger and rougher. He spent 5 years in Mott, dressing himself in glitter costumes every night and performing theatrical rock stunts that left him feeling foolish. Things got so bad before he left Mott that he and singer Ian Hunter had a gigantic row in the studio while recording a song aptly titled Violence. You can hear their simulated fight on the finished Mott album, as Mick's last moments in the group were captured in stereo. Yeah, if you listen to that song and the recording of it, they have you get towards the end of it and it kind of fades out and you hear all the guys yelling at each other, and then it kind of fades back in. And then it goes into kind of a violin, kind of eerie, noisy thing at the end. It's really interesting, but anyway, that's what he's talking about. In the song Violence, you actually hear everybody yelling at each other near the end of the song. That was more than a year ago, and Rodgers and Mick had been talking over the possibilities of starting their own group months before the Mott showdown. After only 3 weeks of trial collaboration, they had 12 songs ready. They immediately recorded them with their own money on Ronnie Lane's mobile recording truck. The result of this musical potpourri was staggering. When the Led Zeppelin heard the tapes, Zeppelin grabbed Bad Company as the first band for their privately owned label, Swan Song. The completed album, also titled Bad Company, may prove to be the most promising import from England since the Forsyte saga began on TV. Okay, so Bad Company, if you look at those Bad Company albums, you'll see the little Swan Song logo on them. And this whole thing they're referring to, the Forsyte saga, this was a TV show that had been on BBC, and I think it was in the late 60s, like 69, and it ended up being shown on PBS, I think it was PBS, in the United States. That's where a lot of that BBC stuff was shown in the United States. Anyway, but it was a very, very popular show, even in the United States and around the world, the Forsyte saga. And that's what they're referring to here. May prove to be the most promising import from England since the Forsyte saga began on TV. Okay. Stage dramatics are out. There are a lot of famous musicians running around loose, trying to hook up with each other and start new bands, but that doesn't mean every collaboration will work or even sound halfway decent. Bad Company's music is fresh, a welcome relief from the tired old tunes most new groups come up with. When Bad Company plays live, the excitement flows right off the stage and fills the audience. English audiences were in a frenzy even before their album was released, and there are no pyrotechnics, expensive sets, or overkill in their act. Stage dramatics are the last thing Mick Ralphs wants to do. By the way, if you saw Bad Company during this time, I would love to hear about that, what the stage show was like, because they're drawing this comparison, especially against Mott the Hoople, that really did have that kind of glitter, almost David Bowie type of way of doing things. And I'd love to hear your feedback on that, what it was like seeing Bad Company in those early days. Quote, "All that glitter thing, since David Bowie it has become passé. We're down to earth, gutsy and bluesy. We don't even insult the audience. At this point in music, a band like ours is essential." And that's actually also an interesting thing, because you do so often see these swings back where you have something that gets too far in one direction. All of a sudden, when a band comes back in that has that really raw energy, it's a welcome relief to something that's kind of gone, where the glitter had become such a big thing. Then as he says there's a need for that swing back into the just guttural rock and roll feel, which Bad Company had. Okay. Their new LP is an impressive display of what can be done with music alone and no gimmicks. The album is deliberately underproduced, emphasizing the talent of the group. Ralph's composing and guitar work is impeccable, particularly on the title cut and on a modern classic he had written for Mott called Ready for Love, a lilting, haunting tune. Okay, but first of all, by the way, Ready for Love, if you didn't know, because everybody's heard that song. That's one of the classic Bad Company songs off that first album. I'm ready for love, oh, I'm ready for love. Everybody's heard that tune before. And of course, Paul Rodgers' voice, you just can't beat it. It's amazing. But that song, that recording of it on that Bad Company album is not the first time that song has been released. Like he says here, that was actually on Mott the Hoople's album, All the Young Dudes. And Mick Ralphs sang it. It was not Ian Hunter. So Ian Hunter was the singer for Mott the Hoople, but he didn't sing that tune on that album. It was actually Mick Ralphs singing it. And the story is that Ian Hunter said it was out of his range. Okay, but because it does hit, I think, some higher notes like an A in there, and apparently Mick Ralphs could do it, but he didn't really like how it came out. But you can find it. Get on YouTube and go look for Ready to Love, and you'll hear Mick Ralphs singing Ready for Love, and that was on the All the Young Dudes album. Okay, a lilting, haunting tune called Seagull makes you wonder if there's anything Bad Company can't play, but Mick Ralphs doesn't want to hear any compliments. The irony of fame leading to failure scares him. Quote, "I try not to be really aware of fame," he said, although he admitted it was happening to him all over again with Bad Company. "I don't want to believe my own publicity. Of course, I want acceptance. I want to be loved, but only because I believe in what I'm doing. Money and trimmings can make you complacent. Ego can crumble, but a good band won't." That's a really kind of powerful and important statement there too, because when it comes down to it, if the music's good, the band's going to succeed. And that's his philosophy there. That because so many of these supergroups over the years get together and the egos come in and then the music just suffers and it's not good. Bad Company, for whatever reason, didn't have that problem. In my opinion, I mean, I look back at all that Bad Company music and that stuff was just amazing. That first Bad Company album was really, really good. There was great stuff on there. And then you get into that next album, Straight Shooter, which is I think I referred to that at the beginning of this video. Those tunes on there were excellent. And Paul Rodgers had such a great voice. And for whatever reason, this combination of guys ended up having just really fantastic music. So anyway, hey, I hope you enjoy this stuff. Please follow this channel if you're not following this channel already. Like the video. And if you saw these guys during this time, I'd love to hear about it. And also, what your thoughts are about supergroups. What other supergroups can you think of that actually managed to not just put out a good album, but actually had staying power like Bad Company did, because they stuck around. There's a lot of supergroups that get together that put out an album and it's really good, and then they just kind of, that's it. But this is one that really stuck around for the long haul. They're a great example of that. So I'd love to hear if you can think other examples of this that you liked, bands that succeeded that way. I'd love to hear about that. Of course, like the video and share this with other people too. And with that, have yourself a fantastic day.